This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bizub. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Welcome, George. Glad to have you here again.
Great to be with you, Dr. Marlene, and good morning in our time zone anyway.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So there's a lot on my mind these days in terms of divorcing families. And, we talked 2 weeks ago. We weren't here last week, but we talked 2 weeks ago about vacation time, spring break, and having, I believe, knock on wood, survived spring break for this year with all my families, because parents start to fight about all of this. But something became really blatantly obvious that I think is crucial for us to talk about, and that has to do with breaks and vacations more so than any other time. And that is the involvement of, presence of all of that, step-parents, step-siblings, grandparents, other extended family members, because you have, grandparents and maybe aunts and uncles, people like that, who visit over the summer or on spring break or whatever, or you go visit them. And same with step siblings and other blended family members. They often have more time together because school's out, it's spring break, it's summer. A lot of kids spend more time at one house with one parent during those breaks. Usually with spring break, if it's a 1 week spring break, we alternate years. One parent has spring break 1 year, the other parent has it the next year. But summer, we often move to larger blocks of time. So instead of, a 5-2-2-5 or even week on, week off, we might move from a 5-2-2-5 to a week on, week off, or move from week on, week off to 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, something like that. But regardless, it involves more time with all those extended and step family members. And that can often just create a lot more, I don't want to say conflict, but a lot more issues. And I have kids who want to be with their step siblings, don't want to be with their step siblings, or a little bit goes a long way. In other words, yeah, I'd like to have like some weekend time with my step siblings, but not all week, or something like that. So, any thoughts on just the overall topic here?
Well, I think the topic of step siblings, step relationships is a very sensitive topic. Bless their hearts for good step parents.
Yes,
It's a difficult role, I think,
yes.
and when it's done well, it's done very well, and it can create lifelong lasting relationships. I have a lifelong lasting relationships with step cousins, for example.
Oh,
And
nice.
so
Yeah.
it's a sensitive topic and one that requires finesse. Um,
Mm,
the step parent is often a thankless position to be in. So
mhm.
we want to be very careful with step relationships and make sure that that can work as smoothly as possible.
Yes, well said. Well said there. That's a mic drop. No, well, it really is. It really is. But just to kind of break it down a little bit, part of what a lot of kids don't count on and aren't prepared for is they like this step parent or they like these step siblings. And then they find that the other parent is jealous and is upset. And let me tell you, for all the parents out there, you can't have enough adults in your children's lives who love them. And if they love them and they treat them well, you are blessed. You are blessed. I mean, I can't stress that enough because, George, you and I both have seen plenty of step parents and step kids who can't stand each other. And the step kids don't want to have, or the kids don't want to have anything to do with the step parent or the step siblings or whoever it may be. It can even be step grandparents. You know, I had step grandparents living with some kids last year, and that was hard for them. But what they don't count on, if they do like the step parent, is that may not be well received by their other parent. So you have a new stepdad, and dad feels threatened, or a new stepmom, and mom's jealous, you know, whatever it may be. Now, I'll tell you what I always say the remedy is for that, and you can tell me what you think. But as soon as the other parent finds a mate of their own, that tends to go away. Have you seen that?
I really don't get to see that end of it very much.
No, you don't. You
I
don't.
hear about the terrible, awful, mean, nasty step parent. That's what I
Right,
hear.
right. Yeah, and often your role's done by the time there are step siblings and step parents and all of that. But, you know, you said earlier, basically, I'm phrasing it differently, but there's an art to being a good step parent. And I can't emphasize that enough. And I have to mention my own husband because I think he is the best step parent I have ever seen. He was there for my son. He provided support. He took him to scouts, his sporting events, things like that. But he never overstepped that boundary of, I am your step parent. I'm not trying to take the place of your dad. Never asked him to call him dad, anything like that. He was just there to provide support. And while we're on this topic, something that has come up in a couple of cases of mine recently, and I'm going to take a little detour here, but step parents should not be the ones to provide physical discipline. They just shouldn't be providing physical discipline. They can ground them, they can put them in timeout, they can do whatever. But when it comes to spanking or things like that, step parents should not be the ones to do that. You want to start trouble for yourself right off the bat, start getting physical with your stepkids, and you'll find out. Would you agree?
I would, and I think physical discipline of children is fading in our
It is.
society.
And it should. I mean, to an extent, it should. I say
So,
that because I had a mom tell some teenagers as well as younger kids that she was going to spank them all. And I'm like, you do not spank your teenage children. But anyway, that's just me.
well, I think it's difficult when children are little and they have a step parent, they really have no say. What I think is sad is when children get a little bit older, they don't like their step parent, and it's a sad situation. They feel, I guess, betrayed, maybe disloyal to a parent, a biological parent. So I don't know where and how the children express their frustration over a step parent where the biological parent will listen to them and actually make some kind of change, because I think that's unusual. The parents go about their lives and they set up their lives as they wish. And so for a child who is frustrated with a step parent or doesn't like a step parent outright, it can be a very difficult time and a very difficult adjustment, I would imagine.
Yes. Yes. And I'll tell you where I often address that, and that is right there in my office. I tell parents, whether it's the step parent and I tell them you need to back off, or it's the parent who maybe is jealous, and I say you need to embrace this person who obviously cares about your child. And we talk about it right there. And I let kids hear me tell the parents that they need to do this or that. The kids hear it. They hear me tell their biological parents, you need to be thankful for that step parent. That gives the child permission to love that step parent. And that's the greatest gift you can give your children is permission to not only love the other parent, but the step parents and step siblings that might be in that other parent's life.
Well, I think there's a reason we have silly names like step monster and so forth. But it is a very delicate situation, and I think it's difficult, I would imagine, for children to adjust and not feel disloyal to their natural parents.
Well, and you make such a good point, George. The torn loyalties that kids experience are huge. And sometimes they don't. But I'd say more times than not, they do. And what happens is the kid is there. They meet the new significant other. They like them. They have a great time. They go back to the other parent's house. They talk about mom's new boyfriend or dad's new girlfriend. And next time they come back, there is a marked change. And the child now doesn't want to have anything to do with them. They're standoffish. And I'll delve into it with the child and come to find out the other parent made them feel guilty. And that created torn loyalties with the child because they did like this step parent, but that wasn't okay with mom. So now I guess I don't like them. And that's emotional blackmail. I'm sorry. You should not put your children through that. That is emotional blackmail.
Well, I can't help but wonder out loud how many times you're working with a family or children and the children feel uh, disenfranchised, I guess, or they come to you and are pleading with you to get their parents to stop fighting.
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how often. I can't tell you. In fact, I had a little girl, she's 7, and I am going to role play what she said to me. I went to her school to see her at school, and this is what I encountered. And she was talking about dad and stepmom. But what she said was, can you please make them stop fighting? Just make them stop fighting. Why do they fight all the time? Can they just stop? I'm just tired of hearing them fight. I mean, before I could even get a word in edgewise, she is just having a full on meltdown in the office at her school. And so definitely I went back and worked with those parents. But when the parents fight, or a parent and the new step parent fight, I mean, all those dynamics come into play here because you might have the two parents fighting, but then you might have one biological parent and their significant other fighting. Well, now the child is just in the middle of a full on war. It's war for them. And there's no place where they can go that things are okay because mom and dad are fighting, dad and stepmom are fighting, you know. Yeah,
Well,
good
and
point. Good
for
point.
better or for worse, if we're involved, war is not a bad characterization. If you get two attorneys going at it over their clients' complaints, and war is a good description. and
It is. Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
it is. Yeah.
yeah, we're not trained to be peacemakers, and
No.
so we have to really learn a new paradigm to try to uh, inculcate in our clients the idea of loving their children more than they hate their ex.
Yes. Yes. And that is foreign to you. It is. I mean, I get that. And I want to say too, for all the attorneys out there, it's your job. Like, I get it, but it doesn't help. In fact, yesterday I was on a call with the child's legal representative, actually, who lives in your community, George, so you might know her. But we were talking about how we've got to get the two attorneys to understand that it's not going to help to go to court. And I told her you're saying, I said, my co host on my show, um, and I shouldn't call it my show, our show, my co host on our show has a saying, and I told her what I've told you. I am threatening to put it on a poster behind me here that says, there's never been two co-parents who litigated their way to a healthy co-parenting relationship. Isn't that the way you put it?
That's absolutely the way I put it. And the off ramps to fighting like that are available. We have mental health professionals that can help us, and are really invaluable, because the alternative is for the attorneys to go at it, and usually that just inflames things and makes it worse. Nobody walks out of the courtroom typically happy with the result. They're frustrated. They're angry. They feel like they weren't heard or listened to, and so they're taking out that frustration in the situation, and the children are caught up in it. They have no choice.
Right, right. And they often know when court is. I talked to two boys last night. I believe they're 12 and 13. But we were talking last night, and they know that next Wednesday is their parents' court date. Now, I'm sorry, I think that's a bit unhealthy. And I told them, I don't want you guys to worry about COURT. And they know why I spell it. I think you're aware of that, but I have a practice of spelling COURT when kids are in my office or when I'm talking to them, because it just sends that message. They don't need to worry about courts and judges and attorneys, but they sure knew when court was.
Well, and I think children, they need to be heard, and they need to feel
Yeah,
like they're being heard.
yeah,
Uh, but in the divorce process, I think they need to be heard, but they don't get a seat at the table. And so
right.
their voice is often most competently expressed through the participation of a mental health professional in the case.
Yes, because you get parents who foolishly and erroneously believe they need to take their children into court to tell the judge what they want. And at least here in Colorado, that's not going to happen.
No, and the judge, I think the judge becomes put off by a parent who wants to bring a child to court or have a child testify. On rare occasion, it's appropriate for a judge to interview a child, but usually it's going to be an older child. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to occur in chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oftentimes the attorneys will be invited to attend but not say anything. and
Right?
so the judge will interview a child, but I think it's a chore that they really don't like to undertake, and they
Right.
see it as harmful. And so really, I just am frustrated with parents who want to take their kids to court and have them testify and line up against the other parent. Uh, it,
Right.
it's it's a very destructive process for a child, and so the
Mm.
more we can shield them or incorporate their needs into a parenting plan, the better off it's going to be.
Yes, yes. And I can't agree more, because I have to tell you, it's hard for us as adults to go to court. I don't like going. And so you can't even imagine what it feels like for those children, you know? I mean, and it's not a place that they should be. And we'll talk more about that when we come back. It's actually time to take a quick break, but we'll return and talk further about kids in court. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Before we went to break, we were talking about kids going to court. And I have to tell you, I have seen parents show up. I'm sure you have too, George. Seen parents show up to court with their kids. And the attorney didn't know they were bringing them, and the attorney scolds them, or they walk on in the courtroom with the child, and the judge, once they see them, scolds the parent, and the parent is, just dumbfounded, like my attorney or the judge or whoever scolded me. And, I just don't understand the parent who thinks it's okay or wise or whatever to take their child to court, because the judge is not going to hear from them. They're not going to let them stay in the courtroom. I mean, has this not been your experience, George?
Well, unfortunately, a parent who is going to bring a child to court has recruited that child to
Yes.
be a force against the other parent. And that, in and of itself, on its face, indicates a parent who doesn't get it.
Yep.
They really are, they're enlisting the child to be a soldier against the other parent. And that is so destructive, I would imagine, for the child. And it sets up an angry situation where more than ever, we need a great parenting plan that's detailed and specific.
Yes, exactly. And if a parent thinks that the judge is going to think that the child is in a neutral place when one parent brings them, I mean, it's like you said, that that parent has enlisted that child against the other parent. They wouldn't be bringing them if they didn't think they were going to say what the parent wants them to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is an indication, I think, on its face, that the parent is not really in touch with what the child needs. And the child needs the permission of both parents to love the other parent. And
Yes.
so the ability to put the child's needs ahead of the parent's own needs, that's exploded when a parent brings a child to court. It's obvious that they don't know how destructive that can be for the child. The attorney's very surprised usually. Typically, the attorney doesn't expect a parent to show up with kids. at court, but
Right.
and would often say, this is no good. You need to have somebody pick them up or stay with them while our hearing goes forward. It's really a sad situation when a parent brings a child to court because we know they're bringing them to try to badmouth the other parent.
Yes. Yes. And that's not the place. If there is a legitimate problem, that's not the place to resolve it. That's not the place. An office like mine, or any mental health professional's office, or the attorney's office for that matter, if the attorney can put counselor hat on longer than, or, for a minute instead of advocate hat, but it's not going to be in the courtroom that we resolve problems, which brings us back to, let's talk about what we do about issues with step parents, step siblings, grandparents for that matter. Um, None of those people are a part, and you got to correct me if I'm wrong, because you know me, I know enough about the legal side to be dangerous, but none of those people are a party to the case, like a step parent, a grandparent, unless for some reason the grandparent has standing, but they aren't typically a party to the case, so they have no right to that child, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so when they have an issue with a step sibling or parent or grandparent, whoever it may be, step grandparents, like I said, in my one case, it was step grandparents. And you talk about layered resentment because we're resenting dad, then his wife, and then her parents. So, or his new in-laws. And so, yeah, we've got layers of resentment there for those children. But anyway, sitting down and talking through it in my office or someone who is competent in this area of practice, that's the best thing you can do. And I can't tell you how many times parents have been pleasantly surprised because we have resolved whatever the issues were. And it can be simple things. I'm going to give you an example. I had a mom say to a teenage kid who had gone to a sports meeting with stepmom because he was with dad at the time. So stepmom took him to this meeting for a sport that the child wanted to participate in. And mother made a comment to the teenager, "I'm still your mother, you know." Now, what I talked to her about, and she got it. I'm going to give her credit here. She saw the light. I said, "Why was that comment necessary? Why is that necessary? That is only showing that you're insecure in your relationship with your child, that you are threatened by stepmom, and you ought to be saying, hey, tell your stepmom, or better yet, tell her yourself, but I really appreciate that she was able to bring you to the meeting." Because, George, the other side of that I get is that same parent calling and complaining to me because the other parent didn't get the child there, didn't get them to the meeting. And it's like, well, you don't want the step parent to help, but the parent can't do it. So they're going to miss the meeting. And that's what you get for behaving the way some parents behave. But to her credit, this mom saw that that was not a necessary comment. And that what she did was not to remind her son that she's his mother, but it made her look insecure. It made her look petty. It made her look jealous. I'll let you comment from there, but tell me what you think about that little scenario.
Well, I can't help but wonder when a child is pleading with you to get the parents to stop fighting. If
Yes.
if the parents don't, what does that bode for the future of that child who is upset by that?
Well, it's not psychologically good for them. And I mean, ultimately, I'll tell you what it results in. And I know you know this, but they will not have healthy relationships in their adult life. It might be work relationships, certainly relationships with potential mates, but kids that don't resolve those kinds of parental conflicts going on during their upbringing won't have the skills to resolve problems in their adult relationships. And so you don't realize what you're doing, but you are handicapping your child. You're absolutely handicapping your child.
And I think if parents would prioritize not doing that,
Right.
uh, they would do a lot better. They would have a healthier relationship with their children, I would
Yeah.
imagine, because I,
Oh,
I think
yes.
the child seemingly feels obligated to defend a parent who's being attacked.
Yes. Yes, they do. And here's what's funny, parents don't realize this, but it's gonna go both ways. Like, they will complain to me, "My child is totally on his dad's side." And first of all, we shouldn't be talking about sides because we don't have sides here. But what I tell that parent is and the other parent is saying the same thing, because kids tend to defend their parent, period. And so when one parent puts down the other, the child's going to come to that parent's rescue. But if it's happening in your home with the other parent, it's happening in the other parent's home with you.
Well, and if we go to court, people, I, I, I think they understand, but I'm not sure. The attorneys are going to try to vilify the opposing
Mhm,
party as
mhm,
much as possible in terms of their parenting, in terms of their interactions with the other parent, and the potential impact on the children. We're there to really demean one parent's parenting skills.
mhm,
And so we've set up a dynamic that creates an adversarial situation from the inception by going to court. And so what we end up with at best is kind of an armed encampment situation where everybody's on edge and every little slight is blown out of proportion. But going to court creates that dynamic, and it feeds
mhm.
that dynamic. And so I've had parents say to me, "Well, I can't believe how." Run down I was. I've been a great mom. I've been a great dad. And now the other attorney's trying to make me out to be incompetent and insensitive. And we are. That's what we're there to
Yes,
do.
that's your job. That's your job. Yes. Yeah, if you want to go into an adversarial system, then that's what you're going to get. If you want to sit down and work it out, that's different. And so, speaking of working it out, let's talk a little bit about what parents can do and how the parenting plan can make a lot of difference. And I don't mean go back to court and change it all, relitigate. That's not what I'm talking about here. Parents can agree on changes and file it with the court, and the court will typically accept what changes the parents agree to, correct?
Yes, we call that a stipulation. And
Mhm,
so we have a stipulated modification. And when both parties agree to it, and it is stipulated to the judge, unless it's an outrageous stipulation, the judge
mhm.
is typically going to adopt that as a matter of course and probably appreciates the parents getting along enough to make an agreed upon change.
Yes, and they will often commend the parents in court. Instead of scolding them and admonishing them, they will often commend them and tell them what a great job they did working it out and figuring it out. And the
And
court's
I,
usually happy to adopt whatever two parents can agree to.
And I guess, Dr. Marlene, what is your feeling about having a designated family court?
I don't think that's a bad idea. In fact, I think that's a good idea. because there's a lot of nuances to this work. I mean, we do a weekly show about all the different aspects of co-parenting, and I think for judges to get to know family law inside and out is the best opportunity for them to make appropriate and successful, healthy decisions for children.
Well, and the buy-in, I think, is so important that if the parents agree, the buy-in of the parents to try to cooperate, to try
Mhm.
to adhere to the parenting plan is so much better than one
Mhm.
which is given to them by edict from the
Yeah.
judge.
Yes. Yes. They have some control, and they are going to buy in more if they made the decision. None of us like decisions to be forced upon us. And that's what happens when we go to court. That's
There's
exactly what happens.
there's no question about it, and I rarely see a court proceeding result in parents standing down from being at odds with each other. Typically,
No.
if anything, it's inflamed by the court proceeding.
Well,
And
and
uh, and so then you have a parent or two parents who are trying to avoid the court order as much as possible, to go around the court order, to just outright violate the court order. And then
yeah,
we've got more problems. So it's really important to try to have parents buy into a parenting plan where they're supportive of it, and they prioritize the needs of their children.
yes, yes. And I'm smiling because I tell parents, if you go to court and you don't win this, you don't prevail, you have just over empowered the other parent. It's like you said, it actually encourages them to keep violating a court order or whatever it may be, because it's just not that big a deal to the court. And you're trying to make a big deal out of it. And so if you take it to court and the court doesn't see it your way, you have just over empowered them. They're going to go that much further and push the line that much more. And will they at some point step over that line? They might. But in the meantime, you didn't accomplish anything. You perpetuated the problem.
Well, and again, then the children stay embroiled in the
Yep.
anger and the fighting of the parents. And
Yes.
so I would imagine that you're going to end up with a child who wants to get away from the home.
Right. Oh, I can't tell you how many kids tell me, like, all the time, once I'm 18, I don't want to talk to either one of them. I'm never coming back here once I turn 18. Now, they probably don't really mean that, but some of them do. And some of them do distance themselves. They go off to college and they don't come back till maybe holiday break or something like that. And I can't say I blame them.
No, no, and unfortunately, I think parents' anger and their fighting will often drive a child to less desirable friends and acquaintances. Um,
Mhm.
and they may join together as friends because they both share a home which is full of anger and frustration.
Yes, and that is exactly what often happens, is they don't make good choices, in fact, with friends. In fact, often kids will seek out friends who are going through something similar to them because they find comfort in that. But now you've got friends who are all dealing with family conflict all the time, and that can't be healthy.
No, no.
No, no. You and I see that all the time. I just can't emphasize enough how much those kinds of choices of our children can be tied back to us and our choices, and it doesn't lend itself to a healthy situation for our kids, for sure. All right, it's time to take another quick break, so we will be back. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. You know, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We're talking today about relationships with new step-parents, step-siblings that might be grandparents or step-grandparents. And besides talking about it and working through it in a therapist's office, I think there's some things we can do that make the situation better for kids. And I'm going to throw them out there and let you comment, George. But I mean, you don't have to agree with me. I'm pretty sure you will, but you don't have to. And first of all, parents, listen to your kids. When they say, I like my step siblings being there, but I need some time with them not there. Listen to that and arrange your parenting time schedule to where they're there part of the time when the step siblings are there, but not all of the time. So let me stop right there. What do you think of that? I mean, isn't that reasonable?
Well, I think it is, and I think it's appropriate for the children to bond with their biological parent and maintain that bond and understand that because they have a step parent, that doesn't threaten their relationship with their natural parent.
Right, right. And the person who has the new step family has to realize you can't force that family upon your kids, especially when they're not ready for it. I had a mom this last year, got married pretty quickly, and the kids still resent him. In fact, I sent an email earlier today to the mom about her new husband, and one of the children is just not liking how he has come in and taken over, and it's too much too soon. So if your kids say, this is too much too soon, it doesn't mean you don't still have a relationship with that person or marry that person or whatever. But if they say, it's enough that I have a new stepmom or dad, now I have new step siblings too, I need some time without them there. You can't eliminate the step parent, but you sure can limit the contact the kids have with the new step siblings. And again, you get that parent that wants to make them one big happy family. And if it's too much for your kids, learn to respect that. If you want to become one big happy family, learn to respect when your kids tell you this much contact with my new step siblings is enough. That's my thought.
Yeah, I I don't know how step siblings take to each other. I don't know if they are typically accepting of a step sibling or typically guarded and maybe even resentful of a step sibling. That's not something I get into, but
Right, right.
there are not. Let me say, this is just my opinion, but
Mhm,
you are much more knowledgeable about the court system than a lot of mental health professionals.
mhm,
Just like, um, and I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful if there were some sort of seminar for newer mental health professionals to acquaint them and familiarize themselves with the court system, with the best interest of the child statute, a few fundamental things in terms of family law, if it wouldn't
mhm,
be helpful for there to be some sort of a seminar to educate the new mental health professional
mhm,
about how that system works, and so they can understand that they have an opportunity to derail a family that is in conflict and fighting, and that's going to accrue to the detriment of the children.
Well, first of all, that's very perceptive of you. And second of all, I couldn't agree more. I was on another podcast this week, and I'll give this gal a shout out. Krista Nash is her name. And I have forgotten Families First, I think is the name of her practice, if not her podcast. But anyway, I did her podcast this week, and we were talking about this very thing, that mental health professionals more and more do not want to work in the court system. And that's because they don't know what they're getting into. And I totally agree. And you've actually put a great idea in my head about, seeing how to go about maybe setting up some kind of seminar or training or whatever, just to inform and educate other therapists a little bit, because what you are saying can't be overstated. Families go to therapists who have no knowledge and awareness of the family court system, and they're trying to treat these families with no real experience with what people are going through when they go through divorce and blended families and all of this. And we do have a shortage of mental health professionals who are willing to work in the family court system. But it's because, like I said, they don't understand it. They don't know what they're getting into. And a little bit of preventive maintenance or a little educating people will go a long way towards understanding here's how it works. Here's what the court is looking for from us and from the families. That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that gate swings both ways. It would be helpful for attorneys to have education around the family dynamic and what the risks and problems that arise there, and how much more healthy parents can be in their co-parenting relationship if they don't try to litigate their way there.
Right. Right. Let's sit down, talk about it, work it out. Yeah. Yeah. And often, if I get two attorneys who are willing to do that, I will tell them, and I know you're going to support this, but I will tell them to sit there and shut up. But I do, because it's you guys' job to advocate for your client. And I tell them if we're going to work out an agreement, but again, I can't stress enough and emphasize the takeaway message I've got for today is listen to your kids and include it in the parenting plan. And you don't
Absolutely.
have to go back to court to do it, do you? I'll let you explain that to our audience. You
No,
don't have to go back to court. No.
No, and my first question is, have you looked at your parenting plan? When a parent
Right,
comes into my office or used to come into my office and say, I've got this problem, that problem, and I say, have you looked at your parenting plan? Well, no, I
right,
just set that on the shelf. Well, that's not what it's there for.
right, right. Yeah. And if you want to modify it, sit down together, write it up, or have your attorneys, one of them or both, whatever, write it up and just file it with the court as, like you said, a stipulation. And
Absolutely.
I don't think there's many stipulations at all the judges refuse to adopt. Would you agree? Aren't they pretty much always accepted?
Almost always. Once in a while, a judge will call the attorneys in and say, hey, I've got a problem with this or a concern about that. But typically, it's almost a rubber stamp type of exercise where if the
Yeah.
stipulation is filed, both parties sign off or their attorneys sign off on it. The judge is typically not going to try to disturb that in any way.
Right, and I think the language, again, acknowledging I'm not an attorney, is as long as it isn't unconscionable to the children, isn't that correct? That's what they look for?
Yeah, or detrimental
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
children. Sure.
yes, yes. And so, yeah, that's the best way to handle it is get together, listen to your kids, reach an agreement, write it up. And even if it doesn't get filed with the court, which you know me, I always think it should be filed with court. But even if it isn't filed with the court, at least have it in writing. You know, where I see a lot of problems develop, and I mean a lot, our parents will agree to something, they don't even get it in writing. They don't even have an email chain or anything. And they think the other parent is going to remember a year later or whatever. And I say a year later because often it has to do with holidays. You know, that we're going to switch Christmases, or I'm going to take all of the holiday break this year and you can have all of it next year, but they don't get it in writing. So, whatever it is, make sure you get it in writing because later, whether it's a month, a year, whatever, the other parent is not going to remember it necessarily the way you do. And if you have it in writing, or better yet, filed with the court, there's no question.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. And at least if there's an email or some sort of communication on an app or something like that, then we don't have to rely on people's memories, and that's a good thing.
Yes, yes, that's always a good thing because I think it's hard enough to remember anyway, but especially when it's something that is so emotionally charged as parenting time. I mean, when it comes to time with your children, I don't know much that gets parents worked up emotionally more than that.
Maybe child support.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, that's a good point. And I'm so glad that I don't get involved in the financial and property end of things. Parenting time is hard enough. I wouldn't want to get involved in that. But yes, people do get worked up about money issues. All right, we are coming up on uh, the end of our time. And George, I want to thank you again for always being here and imparting your wisdom. And I appreciate you so much. So thank you.
It's always a pleasure, Dr. Marlene, and it's always a great learning experience for me.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we will see you all next week. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.